Good evening, Jyotishji and Deviji. Good morning,
Good
everyone here.
evening. Good evening.
How nice to see you both.
Good morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Wishing everybody a joyous and blessed New Year. My name is Pranita.
And I am Nitendra. And together we welcome you on this blessed occasion. Jyotishji Deviji are here. We are celebrating Master's birthday, which is tomorrow. And today we have In Conversation with Jyotishji and Deviji. And not surprisingly, the topic of this In Conversation is life lessons from Paramhansa Yogananda, avatar of Dwapar Yuga.
Firstly, with deep gratitude and joy, we thank you, Jyotishji. We thank you, Deviji, for being our guide today and every day of our lives. Jyotishji, your new book, The Heart of Service, has already started manifesting here as we celebrate the Seva Day of our level 4 devotees with so many joyful souls serving since early morning at the center. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us in this in conversation. And we look forward to hearing from you and going forward on this path with thy wisdom and thy grace. Over to you, Jyotishji.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here with you, at least virtually, in the center. We had such a nice time last fall when we visited Gorgon and had such a wonderful program there. And we certainly know and appreciate the kind of service that the devotees did. At that time, there were nearly 80 that served, many of them through the night. And then now we hear again that you've been many serving all day today. So we too want to wish you a very happy, happy new year. We hope that it'll be deep in tune. We want to wish you a wonderful Master's birthday, which will be tomorrow. And for both Davy and I, this is a kind of a celebratory day because both of us have finally finished our books and we will hand them off. So we just finished today. So it's the new year, Master's birthday, finish of the books. It's all coming together.
Yes, thank you, Jyotish. And I also want to send my best wishes for a new year where each of us who have found our Guru and Master, where we can feel his presence ever more deeply in our lives and his guidance, and that we can be clearer channels in this troubled world to spread his peace and his vision for world brotherhood and harmony. I think you all know that in 2017, Jyotish and I were received on behalf of Ananda at the United Nations building in New York, the Global Peace Ambassadors Award. And there in the United Nations Chapel, we read to all those present Master's Prayer for a United World, which is found in Metaphysical Meditations. And it really was one of the most thrilling moments of my life, of our lives, to share his words, Master's words and thoughts in that place that was dedicated to unity. And we just hope that I really believe deeply in my heart that whatever this new year holds, 2026, that Master will be flowing through all of us more. And we'll talk more about his role as an avatar for this age, for Dwapara Yuga, and how we can be better channels. But it's an important concept to hold for this year. I mean, we all have personal goals of whatever it might be in our jobs, our families, our schooling, health, all these different things. But really, our primary goal should be to be more in tune with our Guru and to be a better channel for his vibration in the world in this coming year. So having said that, maybe
we'll begin with a prayer and just a very brief meditation. So just follow along. We won't try to do it repetitively. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Beloved Master, beloved Swamiji, bless and guide us as we enter this new year. Help us be open to receiving your blessings, open to having our lives guided by you. Help us attune our will to your divinely guided will, so that we know how to act, how to share, how to love and unite with others. Help us be pure channels of thy light into this world. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let's meditate just for a minute or so. Oh. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Well, perhaps I'll begin by speaking a little bit about the aspect of Master as avatar for Dwapara Yuga, but really our whole line as being the avatars who come to help guide this planet through the changing of the ages. This age that we're in now is the changeover from Kali Yuga to Dwapara Yuga, and it's in the ascending arc of a 24,000 year cycle. And so, in spite of the fact that things look like they're deteriorating, in fact, things are getting better and will continue to get better. But we're in a turbulent age. But this line of avatars comes at the beginning or the end of each age. The same line of avatars came roughly equivalent to this time, but in the descending arc between Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga. And so they came at the time of the Gita, the time of Mahabharata, when the planet, because of its orbit around the, toward and away from a central powerhouse at the center of the galaxy, at that time we were beginning the movement away. We were already in the movement away, but we were beginning to enter the point where we were farthest away from the enlightening rays of that galactic center. So they came at that time as the characters that we know in the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata. Master said that Babaji was Krishna at that time. He was Arjuna at that time. And we also know that the other avatars of our line also incarnated. They, of course, have incarnated repeatedly to help guide the planetary changes that are necessary. But these are the major ones. These are the changeovers of one yuga to another, where the whole, one might say, approach to life, certainly the approach to spirituality, needs to make a shift in order to be attuned to the ways, as Swami put it in one of his books. He said, the way that God is dreaming at that particular time. And so the way that God is dreaming this world at this particular time is in the ascending arc of Dwapara Yuga, and there are certain key elements that we need to change over from Kali Yuga thinking into Dwapara Yuga thinking. And so the avatars come really with two purposes. One, they come for planetary upliftment, and I'll talk a bit about that. But they also come for the individual upliftment of those devotees who tune into them. So one might say they radiate light onto the planet. But Master said, like the sun radiates light onto the planet, and so the planet receives that passively. But Master said that if we're consciously receiving the rays of the light, it can have 100 times the benefit of just laying there and having a suntan. And so if we consciously attune ourselves to the rays of these avatars, it can have a huge individual upliftment effect for upliftment. But I'll talk just briefly, and then Devi will talk. And then we want to have conversation with both of you, and by extension with all of our Indian friends. But there are certain key things that Master brought, especially Master being the one who, one might say, played the role of giving the teachings to the world in this age. Obviously, Babaji doesn't really give out books or lectures or any of that. He's very quiet. Lahiri certainly gave out teachings, but he was quieter. Sri Yukteswar, again, not a very public role, but now Master came and he had a hugely public role. The most popular speaker at the time in America, giving hundreds of lectures and writing many books and just carrying on a very, very dynamic life. It was his role to work toward the upliftment of consciousness. But let me talk just about 2 or 3 of the really important aspects. The first is that in this age he came, the whole line came, but the Master especially came to say that this is not an age that we should withdraw from the world in order to be spiritual. Rather, it is an age that we have to find our spirituality in daily life, and we have to practice our spirituality. So that is key number 1. Secondly, he came to teach meditation and service as a balanced path, and a whole, one might say, a whole array of how to live. And then finally, I would say, he came to send very strongly what Devi had touched on, the message that mankind needs to feel its brotherhood. It needs to feel its kinship, all children of one nation. And that, as it says in the autobiography, Babaji and Christ meeting together sent an avatar, sent Master, to help mankind move away from suicidal warfare and restlessness. And that's their mission. So Master gave a lot of teachings, powerful and deep, on how to achieve more unity and brotherhood among nations and among people. And the fact that all of us are talking from just like what we are, dear friends, talking with each other, but from opposite parts of the world on two different, completely different sides of the world. We're already seeing that unifying effect take place. But I would say those three things, integrating spirituality and daily life, a balance of meditation and service, and world brotherhood, are really the three keynotes that we need to pay attention to.
Thank you, Jyotish. I'll go back a little bit too in Master talking about the changing of the ages. He said, as we know, during Kali Yuga, the powerful rays of energy and radiation issuing from that strong galactic center are less accessible to our solar system and Earth. And so human consciousness becomes limited. It can't perceive subtle realities. And during that time in Kali Yuga, the great masters decided people, their minds are too divided, too limited into form and boxes. And so they can't see a sense of unity. So we will specialize, Master said. The masters guided us. India would specialize in spiritual depth and techniques and understanding philosophy. The West would specialize in material efficiency. And they remained moving in those separate directions for thousands of years. And then with the dawn of Dwapara Yuga, the masters, it's so wonderful and reassuring to think that there are great enlightened beings who are one with God, who are really like we're just the little puppets. They're the puppet masters, and they're determining what goes on in this planet, not politicians, not political parties. It's the great masters that are determining. And so at this time, the masters said these separate directions that have developed of East and West, of deep spiritual practices and understanding and material efficiency, it's time to bring those together to create a more balanced global consciousness and more balanced life of the individual. And so they, and as we read in the autobiography, Christ appeared to Babaji in the Himalayas, and he said, let's send someone to the West. They've lost the deep inner communion. They've lost the meaning of that I came to the West for. And this was the beginning of Master's mission. But he came to awaken in the West. And this was interesting. I recently came upon this. Babaji said that he felt Americans particularly were wanting techniques for spiritual development. And Master too said he felt the same thing. He said, America was calling to me. That's why I was sent there, because the West isn't just America. But he said, America was calling to me to bring a practical path for spiritual development. And that's why he came. And that's why he was so well received. So we see at this changing of the ages, the bringing together of India and the West and America particularly. Master said India and America would go on to join and lead the world to a golden age. We look forward to that time. As individuals, as Guru Bhais, we already feel that unity, but it has to be broader than our lives and our associations. And so this is, it's important to understand the bigger picture and to see that this lineage of masters are the guiding lights of this planet. And as we read in autobiography, Sri Yukteswar is on a higher astral planet, Loka. And so not just Earth, but probably many planets. But we also get the benefits on our little ball of mud here on Earth. So we're so fortunate to be awakened to what the gifts these masters have brought and why at this time. In fact, the book that really 20 minutes ago, I finished writing the book. We were doing the final editing, and I just was pushing through to get it done. And the title of the book is Divine Awakening, the Mission of Paramhansa Yogananda and his disciple, Swami Kriyananda. And so it's a time for divine awakening, and this is why our masters have come.
Divine awakening it is, Deviji and Jyotishji. How reassuring it is for all of us to know that our Guru and Master is guiding us at every juncture of our life. The change of the yugas from one to the other to help us attune much more into them at the change of each of these yugas. I think the first thing we'd like to discuss, of course, you did touch upon the fact on why Master reincarnated during this, the age of the Dwapara Yuga. Further, we'd like to discuss Jyotishji and Deviji about what specifically his teachings reflect on the different aspects of Dwapara and how are they relevant? How are these teachings relevant to all of us in this age?
Very good. Well, you know, among other things, Master said that a spiritual teaching to be true, excuse me, true and relevant, needs to be true on all levels, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so Master gave teachings, techniques for all of these levels. He gave many, many techniques on health. You know, I was just reading last night. We have a habit of reading a little section of a book from of a talk from Master before we go to sleep. I was just reading a talk last night that he gave in, I think, 1937, but just a little section, like he was diverting off of what he was talking about. But he was talking about how the power of our will, the power of our decision can change our life, which is one of the major teachings of Dwapara Yuga. It's how the mind can be energized, a will, with a strong will, you can channel energy. But he diverted off, so he didn't talk about it just philosophically. He said, a few months ago, this woman came to me and she was very depressed and she was quite overweight and she was quite lethargic. And she's just asked me, what can I do to help my health, help my mental outlook? And I told her, you're not taking control of your diet. I want you to eat only food that is fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and stay away from starches. And I want you to walk every day. And he diverted off of his lecture in order to say that. And then he said, and she came back just a week or two ago, and she looked like a different person. I hardly recognized her. She was thin and full of energy and full of health. But he was weaving together the fact that these teachings are not just for our emotions, not just for our spiritual path. They are, of course. But if we apply our spiritual teachings, and I would say there are three of them that he talks about repeatedly over and over again. One is the power of the mind, keeping the mind very uplifted, positive. But he said the power of the mind is absolutely infinite, and never accept that you cannot do something. He said, if you never accept it, you will succeed. That was one of the themes. So the power of the mind, the power of the will, which I already touched on. And then he said, you must put into action those things that I am telling you. And in this lecture, it surprised me, I mentioned it in my blog, but it surprised me in this lecture. He said, he was urging the people that he was talking to, he said, I want you to put into action what I'm telling you to do. Don't just sit and be passive and listen. Put it into action. If you do one millionth of what I tell you, you'll find God. And so he was just powerful. He had such a magnetic personality. But those three things, the power of the mind, power of the will, the power of our actions, when attuned to the will of God, will lead to success in everything.
And I think also it's important to add to what Jyotish said, what is the characteristic of Dwapara Yuga? It's the age of energy. And so what Master brought, both in his spiritual techniques, energization exercises, and Kriya Yoga, working with the energy in the spine, and then working with energy, as Jyotish was saying, in daily life. But what I think it's very important to see the difference. Master said in another article, he said, most people, yogis and sadhus say, just don't be involved with the world, be non-attached, don't be attached to people. And Master said, I tell you the opposite. I tell you, be attached to people, but be attached to the God in them, not to the personality or the ego. And so essentially what he's saying is, how do we find God in daily life? That's what the masters, Lahiri Mahashaya, an avatar working as an accountant with a family and children. And Sri Yukteswar was married as well with children. He had household responsibilities. And so they came to demonstrate in this age of energy, a breakout from the tradition that had been in Kali Yuga, that the only way to find God was to go into a monastery or go up to a cave in the Himalayas. But no, bring God into our daily life, magnetize and spiritualize our everyday actions, what we eat, thinking of God, as we work, thinking of God, as we take care of our family responsibilities, thinking of God. This is the new model for Dwapara Yuga. And it's on the ascent, because in Treta Yuga, it's a higher age where people they can create everything with mind power. Satya Yuga, where it's the oneness with God is very easy to establish. But if we can see what's going on now in Dwapara Yuga as setting the stage for the higher ages, it's a lot easier to accept, I don't know, the confusion in the world right now, because, Master tried many things in his lifetime to start communities, to start education, how to live schools. People weren't ready for it. But what we're doing, following in their footsteps, is helping to pave a road to a higher age.
Thank you so much, Jyotishji. Thank you, Deviji. And this leads us to the next question, which is, in some sense, perhaps, Deviji, you are the best to answer, because when we listened to your message on the preface of your book, Divine Awakening, we also realized that this book is not just about you writing the book, but it's also about the 56 years that you mentioned, 4th of July 1969 until 4th of July 2025, all your experiences, your understanding, and perhaps your attunement with Master. So the question that comes, which you alluded partly, both of you, was that did Master have a world mission? But the second thing that follows up is that, as Jyotishji also said, that we have the power of the mind and the will, and we could action. Then, is there something that we should do so that we could become part of the mission that Master had brought for this world?
Should I begin?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll begin. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
As they say in Italian, assolutamente sì. So we like to study Italian because we have many devotees there. But that was, again, a unique thing that Master brought, because in the past, people would worship their guru. They would all appropriately, of course, but it wasn't like they felt a responsibility to be living embodiments. Well, that's what a lot of what Master brought. And even Christ too, he said, why call you me? Why do you call me God? You too are gods if you would awaken. And Master said, the time for knowing God has come. And so we cannot be in this age of energy. The core of Master's teachings, as Jyotish was saying, do not be passive. Do not just lay flowers on the altar at your guru's feet. You take up those flowers and you scatter them and you share them with others, as you all are doing in all of our centers. We were so touched. If you remember when we had the program in Gorgon and you were all down on the lower lobby area, some of you had been awake all night setting everything up, and we were going to the upper area where the program would be, and we just stood on that little landing, and we were just throwing rose petals down on all of you because we were so, you deserved it. You were serving as Master's instruments. And so in whatever way, if you can, create, it doesn't have to even be outward. Really, the true service to be channels for our guru is our consciousness. And if the more we can understand that and really make a deep effort in meditation to be in tune with our guru, be in tune with our line of gurus. And as we celebrate Master's birthday tomorrow, this great avatar, it's so touching. He said, I will come again and again. In his poem, God's Boatman, he says, 1,000,000 times if need be, with bleeding feet, as long as there is one stray brother weeping by the wayside. So he is coming, and he has come in many lifetimes, he tells us, to as Arjuna, as William the Conqueror, as King Ferdinand of Spain, where he's always trying to bring enlightenment to mankind. But if it stops with him, his mission isn't fulfilled. It's up to us, by living his teachings and practicing them. That's how the mission is fulfilled. And so it's a challenge. It's intimidating, but it's also the greatest blessing we can ever receive. Just to say, Master, in my humble way, I will live your teachings and I will share them in whatever way that I can.
Well, I don't want to contradict Davy, but I'm going to talk about the fact that we're not very humble, that our ways are not very humble. If we were to fast forward 50 years from now, the important things going on are not what we think are important, because the real question to ask is, what are people doing that is in tune with the will of God? And those people who are doing things that are not in tune with the will of God, they're kind of little messes that they make, that's going to pass away. But in 50 years, there may be somebody sitting watching this talk tonight who will have more influence on the world than Modi or Putin or Trump or any of the other politicians that we think are so big and so powerful. If they're acting outside of the will of God, they're not powerful. They're just creating obstacles. But there may be people here who are in tune with God, and through that attunement, God will inspire them to do something that is in tune with his will. I'll give you a concrete example. One of Master's missions was to draw the world together into a sense of unity. What president or what leader of what country did that nearly as well as the engineers who created the internet or the scientists who created the smartphone, the iPhone or the smartphone? That brought the world together. They were tuning in to God's flow of energy. Tell me, who was president of India or president of America at the time the Wi-Fi was invented? Probably can't tell me unless you're a historian.
We don't know.
I don't know. But the point is, we all know about the Wi-Fi. We don't know about the politician. So 50 years from now, there will be currents of activity going on that don't seem that important right now, but in 50 years they will be more important than Trump or Putin or Modi. And what I'm saying is that there may be somebody here tuning into the will of God, and through their intuition, God will use them to help bring about world changes that are more important than what the politicians are doing. So in a sense, of course, we're humble because it's God doing it. But our part always is to do our best to align our thoughts, our will, and our activity to the will of God, and to follow, to make that concrete by thinking that the will of God has been expressed by our master.
And just to add finally to that, it's an interesting time now to be a disciple of Paramhansa Yogananda, because part of practicing Kriya, part of discipleship, part of attunement is saying, as we follow in Swami's footsteps, I will take up this task, this mission that you have brought to the world, and I will do my part to whatever extent I can. But it's important to remember that now, that it's not a time where Master's mission was not only to give us these techniques and right attitudes, but to empower us to expand them and spread them into the world.
How wonderful is that? One of the things we are going to do to celebrate Master's birthday, Jyotishji and Deviji, in this room, we are going to be writing a little pledge for Master on what we would be doing differently this year to celebrate him, to celebrate his teachings and the wisdom that he gave. And so beautifully you have mentioned that, everything that we will, as long as that is aligned and attuned to our God and Gurus, that is what is the right service. Moving on to perhaps something more conversational as such, you have been really blessed to have so many years, beautiful years with Swamiji. Would you want to share with us any story of Master that Swamiji would have told you, and particularly something that was not in the books that were written out?
Well, there were a few things, rather than a specific incident. One of the things that Master Swami shared with us that you don't get often is just how human Master was. That he was just in many ways like a friend. When he would occasionally read someone saying how stern Master was, Swami just said his Master wasn't stern. He just was so loving. Of course, he guided us, but it was always with love. It was always with caring. He was like the dearest friend we had. I could go and I could talk with him. He said, I wish I had been older and more experienced on the path, because I was a little bit intimidated, and therefore I was a little bit more formal with him than I would have been if I had been a little older or had more confidence. He said, for me, that relationship came more with Anandamoyi Ma, because by the time I met her, then I was a little more on the path, and I could just relate to her like my own mother. He said, but Master encouraged people to relate to him. So we sometimes hear his voice and it sounds powerful and a little bit formal, but one of the things that, as I say, Swami emphasized was just how loving and human he was.
I'll share several points. One, yesterday we had lunch here at Ananda Village with Prem Das from India, who was from originally Bangalore and has been serving in Hyderabad most recently, and he's been visiting America now, and talking about how playful Master was. he said, Premdas told us yesterday that he visited Mount Washington in Los Angeles, and they have, at Christmas time, they have a big display. Master loved little intricate toys, as we read in The Path, where he had the pistol that shot out sparks and shot out a little parachute. Well, they had a whole display of little mechanical toys that Master enjoyed, and I thought that was so charming. But you know, this was, I'm going to take it on a little more serious note. Swami said once, Master commented, he said, my detractors are saying that I've lost my powers. And then Master said, I don't know that I really had any powers, which, you know, it's levels and levels of that meaning. But then Swami told a story about once, and I think he didn't write this, I think he just talked about it, that there was this huge storm coming into Los Angeles, and it was, you know, threatening to just destroy, you know, blow over trees and take off roofs of buildings and so forth. And it was headed toward Mount Washington, which is on the top of a hill and not very protected. And they were very much afraid. And Master said to one of the nuns, don't worry. He said, take your shoe and go outside and take your shoe off and tap it 3 times on the sidewalk, and the wind will go away. And she did, and it did. And there were all of these reports in the newspaper about this huge, no one could explain how this huge wind totally was dissolved and didn't affect Los Angeles. But so Master said he didn't have powers. But then I want to tell one more story, very, very touching. And we just received this, a letter maybe a week ago, talking about Master's powers, so to speak. This letter we received, it was in response to the blog that Jyotish wrote about life transitions. And it was from a man from Bulgaria that we didn't know, never heard of him. And in Jyotish's blog, he talked about looking at the different transitions in your life, if you had a happy childhood or a difficult childhood, and on, how you responded to them. So this man from Bulgaria wrote a long letter, and he said, I had a very difficult childhood. I had an alcoholic, abusive father, and he left the family at a certain point. My mother couldn't support me, so we went to live with her parents. And then unfortunately, she died young, a very difficult life. And I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather was extremely strict and domineering. And I was very bright, but very rebellious. And I was always getting in trouble, and he was punishing me more. And I was the head of my class, but I got into substance abuse and difficult things. And but at one point he fell down, maybe, I don't know why, but he hit his head, and he saw this white light coming into his forehead. He didn't know what it was. And then he forgot about it. And then his life was going downhill, down and down. Still a young man. And he said, I was, you know, you could feel he was coming to the end of his rope. And he said, I decided to take a train up into the hills of Bulgaria and see if I could get some answers. And so he did. He went up for several days. Nothing came to him. So he was taking the train down, and he looked at his phone to see what time it was. And then he fell asleep. And as he slept on that train, this same white light started coming to him, to his forehead. And then in that white light, he saw a face. Didn't know who that was. Couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, who it was. Then he woke up. 25 minutes had passed. Then he looked at his phone, and on his phone, there was a message from Online with Ananda, our teaching, online teaching program. He didn't know what Ananda was. He said, I don't know how I got that message on my cell phone in the mountains of Bulgaria, but it was saying, time to sign up for a class on meditation and Kriya Yoga. And there was a picture of the face he saw in that dream, and that face was Master's. And when we read that, and his life went on, he straightened his life out. He finished college. He's a professor at some university in Bulgaria. He has Kriya Yoga. He meditates every day. But that's spiritual power. It isn't miracles of stopping the wind. It's finding the lost soul weeping by the wayside in the mountains of Bulgaria and coming to him and sending him a message about how to find God. And this is the power of our master.
This is so touching. Thank you so much, Deviji, for sharing in Jyotishji. Indeed, it is a blessing for us that we could get to hear these stories directly from you both, feeling as if you're here in the room itself. The way Master appeared to that person, perhaps it's the same way it's happening to us as well. So thank you so much. It's a huge blessing. The next thing that we want to get to know from you both, and again, having spent so much time with Swamiji, and Swamiji being perhaps the best example of a disciple that we know. And usually, perhaps copying stuff is easier than thinking on ourselves. So, we have such a great example of Swamiji as a disciple of Master. So, then is it something that you would want to share? What is the best way to be a great disciple of Master, especially learning from what you have seen Swamiji from a discipleship perspective?
Yeah, there are many things that Swamiji did, but one thing in particular is that he personally defined his life as that of a disciple. So it wasn't casual. It was like, this is the core of my life, and this is who I am. And everything else followed from that, but everything else was less important. He wrote so many books and was so creative, but I don't think he considered that in itself to be nearly as important as the fact that what he did was because his guru told him to do it. And of course, he incarnated with all of those talents and all of those abilities, but really his mind was always going back to thinking about Master. He would remember something like this little story that Davy told of tapping the shoe on the tree. I don't remember the time that Swami told us that, but it would have been a time that we were just having a kind of a casual conversation. And Swami, because his mind was always turned, as it says in Master's poem, God, 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 the spotlight of my mind ever keeps turning toward thee. And the spotlight of Swami's mind always kept turning back to Master. And therefore he would remember little things. And he said he didn't, it was a little bit odd. People would ask him, tell me a story about Master. And he couldn't remember one. And then they would then ask, what was Master's teachings on such and such? And then stories would come to him because his relationship to Master wasn't about Master's personality. It was about Master's spirituality. And so he didn't remember the stories about the personality nearly so much as he remembered stories to illustrate Master's spiritual teachings. But always the spotlight of his mind kept turning toward Master. And then the last thing I'll say, I'm sure Davy has things to share, is that he put those things into action. He would remember Master's kindness, but he didn't just remember it, oh, it was so nice, Master was kind. He became a channel of kindness. And we saw many, many times where he would go up to a stranger or go into a shop and engage with the shopkeeper. And in fact, when we were in Italy, he would go to little shops, not so much to buy things as just to make friends with the shopkeeper. So he had a friend who was the fruit seller, a friend who was the man who sold cheese, another friend who had the shop where they had pretty little cups, but he would visit repeatedly and just buy things as an excuse to share his kindness with the shopkeeper. So he put into action what Master, as a disciple, that when he would, his mind would hold on to something that Master said or a direction that Master gave, then he would put it into action. And that's what we all should do too.
Tell the story about when he, right before he died.
Oh, the last week, he was in Italy.
Of his life.
Of his life. He was in Italy, as most of us know. And he was quite weak. We knew that the time might be coming soon, and we called and asked if he would like us to come over. He said, "No, I just need to rest now. I'm very tired." And he didn't want us to come. And he had a tea with his friends, devotees in the community. And after about 15 minutes, he said, "I'm tired. I think that's enough now." He just wanted to share. But so he was withdrawing. But in that phase of withdrawal, he had the Anand, the head of the, he and his wife lead India. And he was, Anand was, Italy was his driver. He had him drive him into town, and he visited all of those shopkeepers and bought a little something. He didn't tell them that he was leaving the body, but he just visited in order to give them a final blessing, even though he was in that phase where he was very much withdrawing from the world. But it just goes to show, Master told him to be a channel for the light. He spent his life as a disciple carrying out that wish. And all of you, when you make your vow to Master for this new year, really try to put that vow into action and be a channel to others for whatever you're trying to develop in yourself.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I think what I would say in response to your question is of Swami's discipleship, and it took a while to tune into it, was his absolute focus all the time on doing Master's will, 24/7, never letting down. I remember the first Swami was going on he had been invited to speak in Northern California at Mount Shasta. And Mount Shasta is a very, very beautiful area, beautiful mountain, and people go camping and hiking there. And he invited a small group of people to go with him and to go camping. And then he was going to give a talk. And he invited me to come. And I was very new to Ananda. I was very intimidated to do this because I just thought, oh, I'm not good enough to do that. And when Swami asked me if I would like to go, I said, oh, well, I have an eye doctor's appointment to get my eyes checked. I was trying to get out of it a little bit. And he looked at me very deeply, said, couldn't you change it? And I said, oh, okay, Swami, I'll change it. So I changed the appointment and I went with the group. And it was the first time I'd been with him, in a small group, in a more personal setting. And it was thrilling because it was like whatever we were doing, if we were setting up tents, if we were cooking food outdoors on a campfire, if we were going for a hike, it was with this absolute high level of focus, not tension, not, oh, we got to get this done, but just focused energy. And everything was absolutely beautiful, absolutely perfect. And then it was at the end of a long day, and I think he had given his talk and we were leaving, and Swami said to the group, well, what do we do now? And I made a remark that was just kind of low energy, oh, maybe we go watch a movie now or something like that. And he looked at me, and it was the first real corrective he gave me. He said, Davy, what's become of you? And it was because my energy had dropped. It wasn't what I said was that, I mean, I could have said anything, but it was a lower level of consciousness. And man, it was like a slap in the face. And from then on, I understood to be around him, you had to keep your energy high and focused, not tense, not holding your breath, not trying to be somebody you weren't, but just being your highest self and being, focused and calm and doing the best that you could and never descending from that. That's what he was. And to his last breath, he was really. It was an amazing thing to be in his presence. And we never took it for granted. We got to be with him maybe more than most people, but we never took a moment of it for granted. We knew every moment was a gift, and we tried to learn from it.
But having said that, it was very informal and very fun.
Yeah.
One of the things I enjoy jokes, and he always wanted a joke, or not always, I mean, but he was always appreciative if I had a new joke for him, because it was like, I don't know how to describe it other than it was like being with a loving father, but a loving father who was very high-minded, and you just wanted to keep your energy reach up to his level, but it wasn't tense or formal or anything. It was loving and it was relaxed, but it was high-minded.
One of the fun things that I always remember was when he was packing to go on a trip, and even when he was older and his health wasn't good, and he would sit in a chair and there would be maybe 10 of us. He was directing everybody. He had these big open suitcases. You get the computer, you get the mic, you get the shirt, you get the, and he just
get that tie, the one with the polka dots on it. I like that.
And he just would be directing all of us. We'd all be running around in circles, and he'd just be sitting there joyfully calm and peaceful. And it was really fun. And anyway, everything being with him, and that's a good point that Jyotish made. It was concentrated, it was uplifted, but it was so joyful.
How wonderful. We perhaps have time for one more. And obviously, we'd like to continue as long as we could, but we'll keep time as well. So, very, very beautiful points there, Jyotishji and Deviji. Putting into action what we will, living in that high energy and focus, but always remembering to stay joyful. Those are such wonderful points that we will all remember and try and imbibe in our lives as much as we could. Just to conclude, obviously, this is a very special occasion. We're celebrating Master's birthday tomorrow. And it is a time for all of us to remember how he has blessed us and guided us in his life. We'd like to ask, how can we connect more with him? What can be our birthday present to Master? And how can we have that connection more, especially around this time when we celebrate his birth anniversary?
Well, I'll give a very specific suggestion. If you're going to meet together tomorrow for Master's birthday, and you're going to write out a pledge or a vow for the coming year, I would make this suggestion. Think of it as your gift to Master. Not so much, I need to change this in myself, I need to adapt this. Don't be self-focused, be Master-focused. But understand that what Master really wants as a gift is us to uplift some aspect of our consciousness. It isn't, habits need to change, yes, but habits alone aren't very meaningful. It's the change of consciousness that comes. So think tomorrow, what change of consciousness for this coming year do I want to offer to Master as my birthday gift to him? And then whatever it is, act on it. Really try this year to hold on to that change of consciousness. If, for instance, you've been a little bit absent-minded and you make a vow to Master that I'm going to try to be very present when I am connecting with you, not to let my mind wander. So if I'm doing the energization exercises, I'm going to try to be very present. If I'm thinking of you, I'm going to try to be present. Not all the time, but during those times I'm connecting to you. Then throughout this year, that will induce a change of consciousness that will change your whole life. But you've got to put it into action. So whatever you think of what you want to develop in yourself as a gift to Master, because what he wants most is just to help us.
The only thing I would add to that is whatever, that's a wonderful thing what you're doing tomorrow. And in fact, we're going to be doing it also on Master's birthday here at Ananda Village. We make a beautiful card with a picture of Master. We renew our discipleship vows. And then on the inside of the card is blank, and it's written, "My vow to you, my beloved Guru." And then every person writes down. But don't just write it down and put it in on your altar, or put it, by your bed. Look at it, review it. I would say at least every month, because I am embarrassed to admit I have found pledge cards that I made many years ago, and I totally forgotten about them. It doesn't help. So write it down, but then look at it. How am I doing? Am I keeping up with this? So am I making progress? And make it a living practice, not just a one time something you write down. But that's really the secret of discipleship. And it's maybe for all of us in the coming year, I feel Master is asking this of us, that live walk your talk, as they say, live the teachings, live your discipleship, do it more consciously in the coming year than ever before. And I think Ananda forms this beautiful network of united souls throughout the world, in India, in Italy, in Bulgaria, in America, and Spain, and all over the world, China, Russia. I don't want to name everything, but this beautiful network of souls united in discipleship to Master. And I think just as Master's mission and the mission of our line of avatars is to uplift the planet at this time, we are part of that work. And let's make this year a year of spiritual progress for our own life, in our own life, and also a time of consciously praying and sending uplifting vibrations to the whole world, so that Master's mission can flourish and expand as it is God's intent to do. That's your card?
Yes,
Oh,
we are ready with
beautiful.
what you said.
Beautiful. Just like what we'll have.
Yeah.
Just like what we'll have. Isn't that something? So beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming over and visiting. You can see our
Yeah.
little Christmas
There's
tree.
our little Christmas tree.
And there's a beautiful little
Murti, kind of a lit image of Master in the background.
and Krishna, given to us by Guru Priya from Kolkata. And so thank you for coming over and
Yes.
visiting us during the holidays. And may Master's blessings be with all of you, all of our, and thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
We
Hello,
love-
everyone.
Hello. And hello, everyone throughout India. We'll be there in September, and we'll celebrate the 100th anniversary of Swami's birth at that time with you all. So God bless you.
Thank you so much, Jyotishji. Thank you, Deviji. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed Master's birthday. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.